Good morning. Welcome. I'm happy to introduce the next speaker, Samar Muslemani. She's occupational therapy student at Sherbrooke. She is also a research assistant with interdisciplinary research group on neuromuscular disorders and will begin a research master next year under the supervision of Cynthia Gagnon and Benjamin Gallet. Can you hear me well? Good morning. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for being here. Probably you saw my name, Samar Muslemani. I'm newly graduated occupational therapy. Thank you. Maybe you saw me in the presentation this morning. You saw my name in Ménage à Trois, occupational therapy, sexuality, neuromuscular disorders. That was my first experience in research. And this is why I continued and work with the team of CRIM on research on autonomy. I really like this concept as an occupational therapy. So an autonomous life for adults with a juvenile phenotype of SMA or DMA. We'll use this standard presentation. I will start with type 1 MD or DM1, a hereditary disease, the most frequent and the highest prevalence in the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean. It is a multi-systemic disease. Not only it affects muscles, but the heart, lungs, gastrointestinal, and the central nervous system. There are 5 phenotypes in this disease. They're depending on the age of the symptoms and also according to the congenital aspect. I have a summary of 5 phenotypes. DN1 is caused by an abnormal high repetition of genetic sequence CTG. On a healthy person, it's 5 to 37 repetition. On the table, it can go from 50 and beyond 1,000 for DM1 patients. With the heredity, the number of repetitions will increase. The age will start earlier, and the symptoms will be more severe. For juvenile symptoms, populations we'll look into today, the age of symptoms, they appear around 1 month and 10 years old. So it's the symptoms are light muscular weaknesses, and physical expressions are not major or limited. It is more about the certain central nervous systems, intellectual disorders, learning difficulties. And I will not give you any detail because the following conference by Benjamin Gallet will talk about the symptoms associated with DM1. What you have to remember here is that it is part of DM1 and it has an influence on autonomy. The problem. Why do I talk this morning about this population and their autonomy? Well, most studies done on DN1 deal with the adult phenotype. We have very few literature on juvenile studies, and those we have are with children and teenagers. We don't know their profile and their expressions, but clinicians who doesn't know how to give long-term services or treatments, and they don't know about the long-term autonomy of the children. Will he be able to be alone at home and live by himself? This lack of information led to a research program at the CRIM, which is the interdisciplinary research group on muscular diseases in Lac-Saint-Jean. So they started a research program, and we reviewed medical files. We saw information about autonomy, and what was seen is that there are social and professional or social, residential, and affective limitations, low participation on the labor market, a limited social participation, and a need of support for major activities. So the objective of the study was to establish an exploratory image of the autonomy of people in their daily life and in their social cognitive functions to, in a nutshell, to get the missing information. Before continuing, I'll try to clarify the concepts I will use. When we talk about autonomy, it's a person who is able to take care of herself by herself through daily life and also household work. I'm talking about daily work like eating, being dressed, and taking care, and domestic or home care. It's preparing a budget, preparing food, and cleaning the home. Since there are many daily activities, we cannot access them all. We targeted 5 of them: financial management, home and transportation management, health and security, household cleaning, and stocking and preparing food. Methodology. It is a descriptive exploratory study, 10 participants with 1 or 9 close ones. The idea is to have 1 family member or close one per participant. The nurses in the neuromuscular clinic recruited patients. We want to have a large distribution, age and sex in that sample. Our inclusion criteria would have a juvenile phenotype of DN1 diagnosis, genetic confirmation, an adult, 18 years old and up, and to have a consent. We had 6 women, 4 men between 22 and 56 years old on 10 people. 1 completed a high school grade 5, 4 completed a high school grade 4, and the others stopped school before. The family environment or living environment, you can see according to age, 4 were living with their parents, 4 with their spouse, 1 with someone in his apartment, and 1 was living by himself. Data collection. We had 2 meetings, half a day, to gather psychosocial data. This is where we talk about autonomy, and half a day at home or in the clinic to have neuro and psychological data. We had cognitive tests. And close people would receive a questionnaire, sometimes an adapted one for them or the same questionnaire. And we completed the information of standardized questionnaires through a medical review, the CLSC or the clinics or the center's files, and we completed with descriptive analysis. These are the 5 questionnaires we gave to participants, so the person with a disease, and we will focus on the 2 dealing with autonomy. 1, independent living scales and independent living skills survey. 2 looks alike, ILS and ILSS. For the independent living scales, ILS, it's a standardized evaluation. It measures the skill of the person to be able to do all these assessments. So we will focus on the 5 activities. Financial management, management of a home and transportation, health and security. We had 3 types of IT to show a capacity to solve problems, to show knowledges, or to do a task. I will show you an example. There were also threshold standardized values. First, autonomous, semi-autonomous, and independent. This is an example of the ILS. Question number 2, can you explain what is income security? So it's a question of knowledge. Question 4, could you tell me what can you do with that money? So he has the money, he has to do the task. And question 6, if you buy a dozen of eggs at $1.19. If you give $5 to the clerk, how much money will she give you back? So we ask, and there's a paper and a pencil. For the second measurement instrument, it's the ILSS, which is a questionnaire. And what we can get with this information is the representation this person has of its adaptation to community. Adaptation means capacity to do some task or have a satisfying and independent life. So, autonomy, in other words. There were 2 subscales. We talked about cleaning home, storing and preparing food, health, financial management, transportation. How it works? It's a list of activities, actually, where the person has to say if she did this task during the last 30 days. It's given to the participant, and also one is given to the close one or family member. Since, like the ILS, we didn't have threshold values, we are talking a percentage of if the person would do 75% or more of the task, we consider that person autonomous. Between 25 and 75 is semi-autonomous, and below 25%, dependent. Another example, during the last 30 days, did you pay a bill yourself, made a deposit to the bank, or so she has to strike one or no, or as I said, there was also another record review to complete the information, mainly on the 3 activities here: financial management, home management, and health management. Concretely, the question we want to ask is specifically, is currently the person has support from the family and outside support to do her task. A summary. We had 4 sources of information, and all 4 will be presented in results. ILS, 2 persons, and the ILSS, it's about the perception of the person. 1 for participants, 1 for the close one, a P for the parents, and information on the record review to see if the person had support from outside. Results according to the 5 activities. Financial management, according to ILS, 70% were depending. When I talk about financial management, doing the budget, financial translation calculation for this kind of task, ILSS results are more split, and ILSS, to the close ones, they consider the person more autonomous. We notice that there's a variability in the results, and I'll tell you proposed explanations of this. Still, 80% of participants used support from their family to help support in the field of financial management. Home management and transportation. We didn't have much information for ILSS, P, and files, but they are semi-autonomous. We talk about repairing a few things in the home, using a phone, transportation. For ILS, it's difficult to measure concretely if the person was able to make some repair. So we ask, did you know what to do in case of, it's important to know. In general, they were semi-autonomous in that category. Health and security. All 5 activities, this is where we see the highest level of autonomy, even if 20 and 40% are dependent, and 80% receive help from their family, probably because they learned early to look after their own health. Cleaning, household cleaning, nothing for ILS, ILSS. If we add 70 and 20%, 90% had issues to do these activities. And also 60% of these people used help from their family, and 20% from people from their family and from outside to do household work. We dusting, using the vacuum cleaner, and storing and preparing food, last activity. Still, in average, results are mostly semi-autonomous and same proportion using help from the family and help also from outside. Choosing food, doing the grocery, preparing a meal. If we put together all 5 activities, we notice overall, according to ILS, people are semi-autonomous or dependent. For ILSS, they are autonomous or semi-autonomous. Same variability as with financial management. Despite this, 80% of participants on the far right use help from the family or from the family and outside support, outside resources. Given the fact that assessment result, and there was also a high degree of help from outside, we can conclude that people were semi-autonomous. They need assistance, even if it is limited assistance. There was a variety in results between ILS and ILSS. ILS required a capacity to perform a task, cognitive capacity, and also, according to the judgment of the assessor, ILSS was about the own person's perception. Maybe can explain the difference in the results. There was a variation between participants and close ones. Close ones considered the person more autonomous than themselves. Probably they had difficulty to assess that. Or maybe it's a social desirability to make that person look good. And it is important to say that the results with 10 participants corresponded to the file review done by Cynthia Gagnon when I was talking about the research program. So what all this involves, the new information we collected. Are participants semi-autonomous? They have needs or difficulties in doing their tasks. It is not a population considered as having a diagnostic on intellectual disorder. No, they don't have services from CRDI. Lack of knowledge on their profile and capacity. They don't receive the category of home services, and this is what we have to look or change. So it is important to accompany people when they're transferred from pediatric to adult services, and the close ones are highly involved in activities of these people. So it's important to offer a follow-up so that they are not too tired. It is important to have early intervention to maintain the present capacities and in the functions. There are many forms of intervention to explore. We're not there yet, but this is what we target with this research program. Intervention on cognitive functions, group activities to have information and support, or more information how to refer or to what services refer, for example, for home cleaning support. In conclusion, we have a few limitations in our study. Yes, it was exploratory study. We had only 10 participants. We didn't have any threshold value related to ILSS. We talked about the percentage rate for activities, but we had a large window for semi-autonomous between 25 and 75%. So it was a limitation. And the fact that the two tools didn't assess the same category of activities, some things that was not applicable. These were the limitations for the study. But it leads to the fact that ideally, it would be important on the long term to have another study who see the results with a more detail and a larger sample, for example, to see the differences in perceptions. What were the causes? We have hypotheses, but to have the real answer would be more interesting. And I said that we need to deepen the results with a larger cohort and also explore the relationship between cognition and the questionnaires, not only in occupational therapy, but also in the other disciplines. I will continue in next year with research in health sciences, and I would be happy to do that study again with more larger sample and more information, and I will be able to offer more information next year. Thank you. Thank you.
Parfait, je suis dans mon temps. Good. Si vous avez des questions. Ah, puis j'aimerais,
I'd like to thank the co-authors, Marjolaine and Isabelle Côté, Benjamin and Cynthia. Thank you.